Hi everyone, it's William again, back in the same location on the balcony for room 109 at Hotel Schatzalp in Davos, Switzerland. And I'll probably be here right around another 3 weeks, and then coming back hopefully in the autumn, knock on wood. There's always so much to get done. If you're curious about what I do here, and assuming that I don't spend all my time solely on Dmitri things, you can see some of the things. This book is a local paper called the Davoser Blätter that the entire year is here in this bound volume for 1901. And so I'm going through that with a fine-tooth comb. And this has the Schatzalp. Schatzalp is now privately owned, but it used to be a joint stock company. And this is one volume of the stock shareholders meetings and the board of directors meetings. Learn a lot from those. At first I was thinking, oh, it's only financial stuff and I'm not so interested in that. But no, they cover a lot of ground, so that's really cool. And I might also say that I did another little video today and I accidentally posted it on the Sanatorium Schatzalp Facebook page instead of on the, the opposite. I meant to post it on the Sanatorium Schatzalp Facebook page, and I accidentally posted it first on the Grand Duke Dmitri Diaries Facebook page. And it's only about 2 minutes, and it's a little walk I took with the owner of the hotel and a friend of his visiting. And we went down to see the Schatzalp Schallenstein, which is a Neolithic or Bronze Age flat rock that has a little indentations carved into it, very, very carefully and sort of symmetrically done. And so if you're interested in that sort of thing, I can't say, of course, that Dmitri went to see it. I would say very definitely that he didn't go to see it in 1939 and 1940, during the period when he was keeping his diary, and then also until April 1941. He was a very, very sick man and almost died. But then there are pictures of him later in 1941 out in the meadow. You can't really see it here, but it's sloping down, and there's this big beautiful meadow out in front, and the Schallenstein is a little bit below that. And there is a picture of him in the meadow holding out a hand like he's gesturing to a little animal or pointing to a plant or something. And so if he was down there already, he might have gone and had a look at the Schallenstein. If you come here, you should definitely go to see it because it's really, really cool. Okay, here we go. Back to, this is the second video in which I'm attempting to do 2 diary entries from 2 different periods. So the first is from 1939, and that particular week, so from the 6th to the 11th of September 1939, he just wrote almost nothing. And that was the case sometimes, but usually in the 1939-1940 diaries, especially in the 1940 diaries, he was writing at length. But it was a little book, and so he would just, when he had a lot to say, he would just very annoyingly try to cram everything in the smallest part possible handwriting. And, he was 48. I am 59, and I couldn't do that. My fingers are too stiff, generally speaking, and my eyesight is poor, but yeah, he did that. So don't be alarmed if you think there's not going to be any good material in the Schatzalp diaries, because there definitely is. But this particular week, yeah, I made the decision not to fit in 2 weeks, but just to go with the flow, doing a week at a time. And this week there's just there's only 2 diary entries for the 6th and the 7th, and then you'll see that for the thumbnail photo for this video, I've attached a picture, or used a picture of the diary page that should have been the 9th, 10th, and 11th, and instead of writing any notes, he just wrote on this, he just wrote the word sanatorium up at the top, Schatzalp, and then vertically through the middle. So I had to turn the page for the photo, sanatorium in English. So go figure. Anyway, here's what we have on the 6th of September, which was a Wednesday. First day normal, period, and then temperature. For the 7th of September, the Thursday, coughing less. Well, okay, that's good. So we have first day normal. He's been using the word normal, but full stop. First day normal, full stop. And then he just writes the word temperature. So I'm assuming that he means it was the first day that his temperature was normal, which was quite an achievement. I'll assume he means that. I don't actually know. But that's it. That's it for that whole week. So we will go right on to the diary entry of 1915, 2nd of January, or the 15th on the Gregorian calendar, 1915. He's at his estate of Usovo, very near to Ilinskaya. It's -2 degrees, and when I say that, he's using the, I don't know how to pronounce it, but he's using the Rumer scale that they were using in Russia at that time. And I think it's pretty close to the centigrade scale. So in Fahrenheit, it would be approximately, I want to say 28 degrees. So 2 below freezing. So it's cold. But he informs us that it is absolutely windless. So that always helps. All right, here we go. I got up around 9 o'clock. I slept very well, deeply. And despite being in a new place, I slept without waking up. I had coffee in the dining room with GM, Borya, and Cook around 9:30, then went out on skis. We skied through the woods and saw lots of rabbit tracks, but no actual rabbits. We dined akat at 1 o'clock, then Cook and I went on foot to the Usovo pine forest with rifles. Again, we saw lots of tracks, but not a single rabbit. We kept at it until 5 o'clock and then went in for tea. I was so tired that I lay down and slept without waking until dinner time, which was at 8 o'clock. Then Borya, Cook, and I took another walk, this time down the hill. We had evening tea around 11 o'clock, then I went straight to bed. Though life is pleasant, I nonetheless think it will be entirely impossible to just hang around here. I'll need to go to Moscow for a little while every 2 weeks. I was worn out today. I did too much walking. My head is terribly heavy and I feel general weakness and I'm coughing. So there we go. And I forgot to do the recap at the beginning. And if you missed that video, it was just about him being unhappy with spending New Year's Eve there and being bored and falling several times when he was out skiing, and also off a sled and hurting his knees. And yeah, he's not in a great mood. Okay, so today, at least on the 2nd of January, he hasn't had any mishaps. He mentioned sleeping well and not waking up. And, he would be plagued as a middle-aged man by insomnia and was sort of notorious for keeping people up. If he invited them to come for a visit when he was back to being a bachelor after his divorce, he would, in the words of, I think the first name was Nikolai Graf, a friend of his from the Young Russia Party, he would choose a victim to basically stay up all night with him talking so that he wasn't alone. And yeah, it sounds like maybe the insomnia was always a problem. Maybe not as much in his earlier years or as later, but he's happy to have slept well without waking up. That's always good. And, you know, we can definitely infer from these that I don't know what he was doing in December of 1914, but at least he hasn't been, we can tell, he hasn't been at Usovo long. He says, you know, he slept well despite being in a new place. Not a new place in the sense of an unfamiliar place, but, you know, he obviously had just arrived, you know, probably just a few days before. Okay, the skiing that he's doing, I think mostly what they did in Russia is Nordic skiing, and he talks about it when he's a kid, and he goes out with Felter and now out with Cook. Cook, by the way, I mentioned in the previous video, but just to clarify, he wasn't a Cook. His surname was Cook. Okay, so I wonder if all this physical activity, I mean, they're out skiing and then they go out hunting, trying to go hunting in the forest for what? Probably from about 2 o'clock, 1:30 to 5 o'clock. So out all day, basically. And was this at his initiative because he was bored, or was this, I speculated before that maybe that was why Cook was there. Borya was a teenage boy, and Borya does go out with him sometimes, but it seems like it's mainly Cook who has this task, if indeed it was his task, of getting Dmitri outside in the fresh air and in motion. And again, there's this question of what was wrong with him. You know, were they afraid that he had tuberculosis? They may well have been afraid of that. I can assure you that he did not have tuberculosis, but, you know, people very quickly jumped to that conclusion at this time period because it was such a deadly disease and it was so frightening. And if you had a cough, you know, and were tired and that sort of thing, then they would be afraid that you had tuberculosis. So that doesn't surprise me at all. But I think they probably more thought that he was vulnerable to tuberculosis because he doesn't have a doctor with him and they haven't sent him to a sanatorium and he doesn't have a rest cure regimen that he's following. And yeah, symptomatically, he's tired, his head is heavy, and he feels generally weak. So all very non-specific symptoms, all symptoms that could be just a matter of depression and trauma from his war experience. And, you know, he wants to sleep a lot, he's tired, he feels weak. So the cough is the only thing that is really, you know, probably not psychosomatic, but I've said it before, I'll say it again, the man was a smoker. He was stealing cigarettes when he was 14, and I assume that they officially allowed him to start smoking when he was 17, and he was not just a smoker, but a chain smoker. There are plenty of descriptions of that. And so if he had a cough, well, yeah, that kind of comes with the territory. If he had tuberculosis, he would have been having night sweats and fever, and, you know, he would have been losing weight, and it would have been much more alarming than what he's describing here. And I think the people who loved him would have found it much more alarming, and they wouldn't have just sent him out to the countryside, and they wouldn't have wanted him to be out, you know, 5 hours a day doing strenuous activities. It was always good if you had tuberculosis. Of course, at that time, they were thinking that exposure to cold air, cold, pure mountain air, ideally at relatively high altitude, that was what you wanted to do. But you would be sitting out here on a balcony like this, wrapped up. You wouldn't be going skiing. That would have been forbidden. And you wouldn't have been going hunting. That would have been forbidden. So anyway, it's interesting to compare this, of course, to what he's describing in 1939 when his illness, you know, was verified. And it wasn't psychosomatic. And so, you know, it's interesting to make the comparison. So what do we have next time? Well, next time we have some contact with Anna Verubova and Missy, the Queen of Romania, a person that Dmitri has complex feelings about. So come back for that. I actually didn't even, I have to use a USB stick to look at what's coming up next in the 1939 diary entry, and I don't have it with me here on the balcony, and I just didn't do it. So we'll be surprised with what his next week at Schatzalp will be like. So yeah, come back. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.